If there's one thing that Claudia Hunter Johnson fights to get across in her book, Crafting Short Screenplays That Connect, it is that movies are the most powerful empathy machine in all the arts. She writes to create empathy, identification, understanding, and compassion in the hearts of your audience. The reason why we connect to our favorite protagonist on screen is because though our lives may be very different, our desires and needs as humans are the same. This is what Barry Jenkins, who also happened to be a student of Johnson in film school, perfectly encapsulates in his highly critically acclaimed film, Moonlight. Released in 2016, Moonlight intimately follows the childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood of Chiron, a gay black man growing up in Miami, Florida, as he struggles with his sexuality, identity, and societal expectations of being a man. It is, quite frankly, a cinematic masterpiece that managed to be both profound and deeply intimate in the way it explores Chiron's self-discovery, as well as examining black masculinity and the broader human condition and experience itself, all through its nonlinear narrative structure and powerful symbolism. The film unfolds in 3 acts, each focusing on a pivotal moment in Chiron's life that makes up who he is. This is the start of how this film channels empathy, because instead of telling his whole comprehensive story through every detail, we focus only on these transformative moments that allow us to deeply engage in Chiron's experience. The film opens with Chiron, nicknamed Little, running away from the bullies that torture and ostracize him daily, when he meets a man named Juan, who, despite being a drug dealer in order to survive, becomes a father figure in Little's life while his addict mother continues to neglect him. Perhaps the most emotional and transformative scene in the film is when Juan gives Little swimming lessons, and it's a great example of how Moonlight uses visual poetry to tell its story and leave resonance. It is in this moment, as a boy without a father and a man without a son, that these characters solidify their bond. It's the essence of fatherhood, really, as Juan teaches Little with tender care how to stay afloat, both literally and symbolically, shown in the words he gives him afterwards.
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you want to be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
The water level camera puts us right there with them and lets us feel the same tension of fighting to stay afloat and keep our own heads above water with Chiron. This is Juan teaching Chiron how to be comfortable with fear, and perhaps most importantly, how to be vulnerable, the exact opposite of what society says Chiron should be, yet it is at the core of his character. James Laxton, the cinematographer of Moonlight, replicates this same purposeful style in all other areas of the film, letting the cinematography serve as a conduit of empathy alongside the breathtaking score that speaks directly to the viewer's emotions, thus connecting them to the characters. The continuous intimate framing is core to this language, as it captures the subtle nuances in facial expressions, body language, and even play of light. There are several instances of key emotional importance where the characters even look directly into the lens, speaking to the audience. In an interview with Time magazine, Laxton discussed the decision to use anamorphic lenses in order to amplify the emotional state of the characters within the majestic widescreen format. He says, "The attempt was to promote those emotions, not just to present them, but to promote them to a place where you can sense the intensity by which Chiron's character is going through these things, what it means to that character to be bullied, to have to deal with these sexual questions that he's going through in his teenage years. Our idea was to present them visually with that same amount of intensity, which for us meant anamorphic lenses that express the heightened sense of existence that I think audience members sometimes associate with bigger tentpole films, but we're presenting this sort of nuanced, subtle story, but with that same heightened value." There are also so many technically exemplary fluid tracking shots that navigate seamlessly through scenes and contribute to the film's immersion. It's almost as if the visual fluidity mirrors the emotional fluidity of the narrative and Chiron's changing emotions. Characters are also always thoughtfully positioned within frames, suggesting their emotional distance. Kevin, Chiron's best friend and eventual lover, is always very close to him in frame, while we see the opposite with his mother. Laxton also mentioned how he immersed himself in the colors of Miami and wanted to emphasize the vibrant greens and ocean blues that he found himself surrounded by. Scenes are bathed in the golden hues of the sun or the silvery glow of moonlight, creating an aesthetic that is both visually striking and emotionally resonant. Which brings me to the second part of the visual poetry of Moonlight, color symbolism. The color blue and Moonlight itself is extremely significant in this film. noted by Juan's line within the swimming scene.
This old lady, she stopped me. She said, running around, catching up all that light. In Moonlight, black boys look blue. You blue.
Blue pops up even more in Act 2 as Chiron navigates his turbulent relationship with Kevin while contending to a drug-addicted mother, all while battling societal pressures that scream at him to suppress his true self. But that's what blue is, true self. To be under the moonlight means to reveal your true self, your true colors. In the swimming scene, we're immersed in the blue of the sky and the ocean as Juan and Chiron are their truest, most vulnerable selves together. Blue is subtly there in interactions between Chiron and Kevin, but is everywhere when Chiron takes his revenge, the first time he is standing up for himself. Kevin also stops wearing blue after he betrays Chiron, which shows his loss of self afterwards. Blue is often juxtapositioned with intense reds to show the intensity of emotions, especially with interactions between Chiron and his mother. Blue is often associated with water, which is also a reoccurring metaphor itself for self-reflection and rebirth within the film. Every scene involving water, whether it's the ocean, swimming pool, or even the bathroom sink, becomes a space where Chiron confronts his identity and true self. The fluidity of water ties back to the fluidity of identity and Chiron's continuous evolution across all three acts, challenging the rigidity of society norms and celebrating the beauty of transformation. Blue becomes not just a color, but a state of being for Chiron, as it may symbolize not just his true colors, but the complexities that shape his identity, whether it takes the form of the ocean or the dimly lit interiors. In the end, after Chiron returns to Kevin and they share one last intimate moment together, we return to a breathtakingly blue shot of a young Chiron standing in front of the ocean as he turns back to the viewer, as if asking, "Who are you? Who are you going to make yourself?" And inviting us to the vulnerability Juan taught him about. Moonlight demonstrates that cinema, at its highest form, is a medium for empathy, understanding, and introspection into walks of life we may not share, but the emotions we do. And by embracing this visual poetry within its storytelling, this film has made its mark on cinematic history and sparked significant conversations that go well beyond the cinematic screen.